Imagine the jaws of death snapping shut, but parting in mercy. On a forsaken Georgia night, for souls bound in iron faced the starving beasts bred for blood. Yet as fangs gleamed under the moon, something holy stirred in the shadows, defying man's cruelty, awakening divine wrath. What if the hounds saw not prey, but kin and suffering? The air hung thick that August eve in 1847, like a shroud woven from the sweat of the oppressed and the sins of the oppressors. Northern Georgia's backwoods whispered secrets through the pines, where the red clay earth drank deep from the blood of generations chained to its soil. The Harrove plantation wasn't just land, it was a kingdom of torment, sprawled across 800 acres of shadowed forest and sun-scorched fields. Isolation was its greatest chain, the nearest town a grueling day's ride away, where the cries of the enslaved dissolved into the wind like forgotten prayers. Picture the main house, a towering sentinel of white columns and sprawling verandas, bathed in the golden haze of sunset, its windows like watchful eyes overlooking the domain. Lantern light flickered from within, casting long shadows that danced like demons across the lawn. Surrounding it, the slave quarters huddled in grim rows, crude cabins of weathered pine, roofs sagging under the weight of endless rains, walls thin as parchment, riddled with cracks that let in the chill of winter and the buzz of summer mosquitoes. The scent of wood smoke mingled with the earthy tang of tobacco leaves drying in the barns, a constant reminder of the labor that fueled this empire of exploitation. Samuel Harrove, the master of this forsaken realm, was a man in his late 50s, his face etched with the lines of calculated ambition. Inherited wealth had bloated his holdings, but it was his ruthless dealings in Savannah's markets that truly fattened his coffers. Harrove moved like a ghost through his own property, distant, impersonal, his voice rarely rising above a murmur. Yet his edicts were ironclad, enforced by the invisible hand of fear. He spent months away, mingling with fellow planters in Charleston ballrooms, sipping brandy while negotiating tobacco futures, leaving the plantation's pulse to beat under another's fist. That fist belonged to Garrett Thorne, the overseer, a lean specter of a man, his skin baked to leather by the Georgia sun, his eyes cold as a serpent's gaze. A perpetual scowl carved his features, as if the weight of his authority pressed eternally upon him. Thorne had clawed his way from the fields of a neighboring estate, not through wit or wisdom, but through raw brutality. A coiled whip dangled from his belt like a venomous tail, and a pistol nestled in his waistband, its barrel scarred from frequent use. He didn't just enforce order, he reveled in it, finding twisted joy in the crack of leather on flesh, the whimper of submission. Thorne's arrival in the spring of 1845 had poisoned the air like a blight on the crops. Where Harrove was a distant storm cloud, Thorne was the lightning strike, unpredictable, searing. He patrolled the fields at dawn's first light, his boots crunching the dew-kissed earth, eyes scanning for the slightest falter. New decrees fell like lashes, no words exchanged under the sun's glare, no clusters of more than 3 souls, no unauthorized steps beyond the assigned paths. Transgressions? Met with swift retribution, public floggings in the central yard, where the crack of the whip echoed like thunderclaps, drawing blood that soaked into the dirt, a macabre fertilizer for the tobacco plants. The enslaved, some 60 souls, from wide-eyed children to elders bent by decades of toil, endured in those ramshackle cabins. Families crammed into spaces barely fit for beasts, thin partitions offering no sanctuary from the sobs of the weary or the fevered coughs of the ill. The narrow lane between the rows buzzed with fleeting life, children's laughter in stolen moments, elders murmuring tales under the stars. But always, the undercurrent of dread, a spiritual ache that whispered of a God who seemed distant, yet whose judgment loomed like the gathering clouds. Among them stood 4 figures, woven into the fabric of this narrative like threads of fate: Jacob, Esther, Thomas, and Samuel. Their stories weren't mere anecdotes, they were testaments to resilience, etched in the scars of body and soul, symbols of humanity's unyielding spark amid divine trials. Jacob, in his early 30s, carried the weight of lost worlds on his shoulders. Born under Virginia's skies, where his mother stirred pots in the big house and his father hammered iron in the forge, he'd known a fragile semblance of childhood grace. Secret lessons from the planter's offspring taught him letters and numbers, skills hidden like contraband. His father's hands guided him in craftsmanship, forging not just metal but a quiet pride. But at 15, the planter's death shattered it all, the estate carved up, family scattered like chaff in the wind. Jacob, sold southward, landed in Richard Dalton's grasp, a Virginia Piedmont planter obsessed with hounds. Dalton's kennels became Jacob's domain, blue tick and redbone hounds, bred for the hunt, their coats glossy under his care. He learned their language not through the lash, as others might, but through patience, a gentle touch that coaxed loyalty from wary eyes. These beasts, trained to track the fleeing and the feral, revealed to him the poetry of instinct, the twitch of an ear signaling trust, the low whine begging connection. In them, Jacob saw mirrors of his own bondage, creatures bound by man's whim, yet capable of profound bonds. 5 years he tended them, forging alliances that transcended species, a silent rebellion against isolation. But debt claimed Dalton in 1842, and Jacob was uprooted again, chained in a trader's wagon rumbling to Georgia. Sold to Harrove, he traded kennels for carpentry, mending barns and building fences under the relentless sun. The tools felt foreign in hands that once soothed beasts, the ache of separation gnawed like hunger. Yet in quiet moments, he'd whisper to the stray dogs wandering the edges, his voice a balm, evoking memories of loyalty that no chain could sever. Spiritually, Jacob embodied the biblical job he tested, stripped, yet clinging to an inner faith that animals, too, were part of God's creation, vessels for unexpected mercy. Esther, mid-40s, was the plantation's enduring root, born to its soil like the ancient pines. Her mother perished birthing her, her father a shadow never named. Harrove's land had cradled her every breath, witnessing the ebb and flow of lives ensnared. 5 children she'd borne, their tiny cries echoing in the cabins, but fever and the auction block claimed 3, the survivors ripped away at adolescence, sold like livestock. Each loss carved deeper into her spirit, forging an armor of resolve amid the grief. She toiled in the fields by day, her back bent under the sun's merciless gaze, hands blistered from hoeing rows that stretched to infinity. Yet Esther was more than laborer, she was healer, midwife, guardian of the unseen. From elders' whispers, she'd gleaned the secrets of the earth, willow bark for pains, elderberry for fevers, roots dug under moonlight for wounds that festered. Behind her cabin, a hidden garden bloomed, herbs defying the barren clay, symbols of resistance. When the white doctor shunned them, souls sought her out, her touch a conduit for healing that felt divine. In her, one saw the Proverbs' wise woman, building her house with hands that mended bodies and spirits alike. But Esther's true power lay in memory. She was the storyteller, the archive of souls lost to the trade. Names, faces, songs from African shores, preserved in her heart, recited in hushed circles under the stars. These tales weren't idle, they were lifelines, reminding the oppressed of their humanity, of a God who remembered the forgotten. In her voice, one heard echoes of Exodus, the promise of deliverance amid Pharaoh's grip. Thomas and Samuel, brothers forged in fire, stood as youth's defiant flame. Early 20s, they shared their mother's, Ruth's, unyielding spirit, lost to pneumonia's chill when they were teens. Inseparable, they labored shoulder to shoulder, clearing forests with axes that bit deep into timber, their muscles corded like ropes from endless toil. The cabin corner they claimed was a fortress of brotherhood, whispers of dreams piercing the night. Thomas, the elder by 18 moons, towered broad and silent, his scarred hand speaking volumes his tongue withheld. Whipped near death once for refusing to betray another, lashes that striped his back like a martyr's crown, he embodied quiet defiance. Peers sought his counsel in disputes, his fairness a beacon in chaos. In him burned the spirit of David, facing Goliaths with steadfast calm, his scars a testament to moral fortitude that no overseer could lash away. Samuel, younger and spirited, wove humor like a shield over his rage. Quick-witted tales lightened the midday breaks, drawing chuckles from weary lips. But beneath lay a volcano, witnessing Ruth's deathbed agony, denied care by indifferent masters, had kindled a fury for freedom. He dreamed vividly of northern stars guiding them, of lives unchained. Samuel was the prophet's voice, crying in the wilderness for justice, his laughter a mask for the divine discontent stirring within. That summer of 1847 scorched like hellfire, heat waves shimmering over fields where tobacco leaves wilted under the assault. Humidity cloaked everything in a suffocating veil, workdays stretching into dusk as Thorne's demands escalated. Rations dwindled, cornmeal thinned, salt pork scarce, punishments for laziness that was mere exhaustion. The air crackled with unspoken tension, a spiritual unrest as if the land itself groaned under the weight of iniquity. Whispers of escape threaded through the quarters like vines, coded songs hummed at dawn, glances exchanged in the rows. Escape wasn't fantasy, it was the soul's cry for redemption, a biblical flight from Egypt. For Jacob, Esther, Thomas, and Samuel, it crystallized into plan. Moonlit meetings in a woodland clearing, voices low as the rustle of leaves, they wove strategy from desperation. Jacob mapped the stars, his hound handling days teaching navigation's arc rivers as guides, moss on trees pointing north. Esther timed patrols, her healer's wisdom stocking pouches with salves and roots for the trek. Thomas anchored with strength, Samuel fueled with urgency. Risks loomed, swamps teeming with gators, patrols with bloodhounds, the auction blocks deeper south. Failure meant not just chains, but souls crushed under divine-seeming judgment. Yet Thorn's eyes pierced shadows. Schooled in betrayal's subtleties, he sensed the shift, hushed silences, averted gazes. Informants lurked, like Peter, a broken field hand whose spirit had fractured under years of torment. Approached one twilight, Peter's vague murmurs gave way under threats, spilling names and plans. Shame bowed him as he retreated, a Judas in the garden, trading kin for scraps. Thorn watched, predator-like, confirming suspicions in fleeting glances and hurried steps. Conviction hardened, he would strike first, a self-appointed avenger of order. August 14th's dusk painted the sky in blood hues, cooling air heavy with impending storm. Thorn rallied his enforcers, Dalton and Harris, overseers with clubs, hired hands gripping ropes. Torchlight flared as they stormed the quarters, doors splintering, screams piercing the night. Jacob, Esther, Thomas, Samuel dragged forth, bound, lined in the lane under flickering flames. Thorn loomed, face a mask of righteous fury. Conspirators. Betrayers of trust. No defense allowed, judgment fell swift as the whip. In that moment, the air thickened with spiritual portent as if angels watched, weighing souls on scales of justice. The four stood, heads high, embodiments of the oppressed rising, their silence a prayer for deliverance. But fate's twist awaited in the kennels, where beasts bred for savagery might reveal heaven's mercy. The night deepened, shadows lengthening like fingers of retribution, the plantation's sins ripening for harvest. What unfolded would shatter beliefs, echoing through time as a testament to compassion's boundaries, or even hounds could heed a higher call. The kennels squatted at the wood's edge, iron-barred pens where Harrove's hunting dogs paced, starved frames, ribs stark under mangy fur, eyes wild with conditioned rage. Trained on scraps and lashes, they were weapons on four legs, unleashed on fugitives or game. Thorn's order rang out, throw them to the dogs. A punishment biblical in cruelty, evoking Daniel's lions, yet twisted by man's hubris. Dragged through mud-slick paths, the four felt the earth's pulse beneath them, a rhythmic reminder of life's fragility. Jacob's mind flashed to his Virginia hounds, trust earned, not forced. Perhaps here, too, lay a spark of recognition. As gates creaked open, the dogs lunged, but halted. Snarls faded to whines, tails low not in attack, but submission. They circled, sniffing, then pressed close warm bodies against trembling legs, guardians not executioners. Witnesses froze, hardened men, torches wavering, faces pale in the moonlight. Thorn bellowed commands, but the hounds ignored, forming a protective ring. One licked Esther's hand, another's head rested on Jacob's thigh. Thomas and Samuel stood stunned, the air electric with miracle. Dawn broke, revealing the impossible, for unharmed, dogs serene as lambs. Thorn fled weeks later, whispers of curse trailing him. The four vanished, freed? Hidden? Their legacy burrowed into folklore, a spiritually chilling reminder that divine justice flows through unexpected vessels, where even beasts rebuke the wicked. Harrove's record sealed the tale, but fragments emerged, journals yellowed by time, archives dusty in county halls, testimonies from descendants. This night challenged antebellum certainties, loyalty not bred by fear, compassion crossing species, sin's retribution inevitable. In the spiritual lens, it evoked proverbs, the righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. The dogs, symbols of oppressed instinct, mirrored the enslaved, beaten, yet capable of profound empathy. Their refusal? A divine intervention, haunting the guilty, redeeming the innocent. The plantation's woods still whisper, pines swaying like sentinels over graves unmarked. Guilt's legacy lingers, a psychological specter, thorns vanishing, perhaps madness from witnessing heaven's hand. Redemption's theme threads through four souls, perhaps ascending to freedom's promised land, their story a beacon for abolition's dawn. Visually, envision the scene, moonlight filtering through branches, casting ethereal glow on furrowed brows, the dog's eyes reflecting not hunger, but soulful depth. Sounds, distant owl hoots, heartbeats thundering in sync with narrative pauses. Emotions swelled, dread in the drag to kennels, awe in the hound's mercy, reflection on justice's arc. This tale isn't mere history, it's a moral mirror, urging viewers to confront cruelty's echoes in modern chains, systemic, invisible. What boundaries does compassion cross? Where does divine retribution strike? Call to action, narrated warmly, with uplifting music fade in. If this story stirred your soul, subscribe now, hit that bell for more tales of hidden miracles and haunting truths. Comment below, what act of unexpected kindness has changed your life? And where are you tuning in from, Georgia's pines or beyond? The kennels lurked like forsaken altars at the plantation's ragged fringe, or manicured fields surrendered to the wild tangle of Georgia's untamed woods. Crude enclosures of splintered timber and rusted chain link, they stood as monuments to neglect, hinges groaning in the humid breeze, fences mended haphazardly with twisted wire and scavenged scraps. Built years prior on Samuel Harrove's whim, these pens housed his arsenal of trackers, dogs bred not for loyalty, but for the hunt, pursuing deer through the pines or, more sinisterly, souls fleeing bondage's grip. The air within reeked of damp earth and decay, a miasma that clung to the skin like guilt unconfessed. 6 beasts dwelled there, hulking forms of muscle and sinew, their short coats matted with filth, jaws forged for rending. A motley pack, bloodhounds with their keen noses, curs with their unyielding ferocity, selected for the spark of aggression that made them instruments of terror. Perpetually starved, their ribs etched stark against hides scarred by whips, they knew only deprivation and dominance. Feedings came sporadically, rewards for obedience, failures met with beatings that echoed like accusations. These were no companions, no guardians of hearth, they were extensions of man's cruelty, tools wielded in the name of control, discarded in shadows when not summoned. In their eyes burned a primal fury, a reflection of the spiritual barrenness that plagued the land, where even God's creatures were twisted into agents of sin. Garrett Thorne's command sliced through the night like a blade, to the kennels with them. The enslaved onlookers, clustered in the flickering torchlight, watched in mute horror as Jacob, Esther, Thomas, and Samuel were herded across the dew-slick grass. Hands bound with coarse rope that bit into wrists, their faces masks of stoic resolve, eyes gleaming with an inner light that no darkness could quench. The humidity pressed down like a divine judgment, thickening the air, while cicadas droned an incessant requiem, amplifying the pulse of impending doom. Amid the march, Esther's voice rose soft as a prayer, humming in ancient spiritual notes of hope woven through sorrow, a melody passed down from ancestors who dreamed of Jordan's banks. Thomas and Samuel joined, their baritones steady as anchors, and Jacob, ever the quiet one, lent his rumble, transforming the procession into a defiant hymn. It was as if the spirits of the oppressed rose with them, challenging the night's tyranny. Reaching the kennels, the gates yawned open with a metallic screech, swallowing the four as ropes were severed, freeing hands but trapping fates. Shoved inward, they stumbled onto the straw-strewn ground, the door slamming shut like the closing of a tomb. Thorne and his cadre Dalton, Harris, and the hired brutes formed a vigilant arc, torches casting hellish glows that danced across their expectant faces. Inside, the dogs stirred from shadowy repose, rising on haunches, ears pricked like sentinels, bodies coiled with latent violence. The air thrummed with anticipation, the beasts' low growls rumbling like distant thunder, their eyes reflecting the firelight in predatory gleams. Yet what unfolded shattered the script of savagery. No frenzied assault, no symphony of screams and snaps. The dogs circled warily, noses questing the air, ears flattened not in attack but curiosity. Jacob anchored himself immobile, gaze locked on the alpha, a colossal brindled hound, muzzle etched with battle scars, one ear notched like a badge of survival. The beast advanced, nostrils flaring at Jacob's scent, a ritual of assessment. Jacob breathed deliberate, rhythmic, calm as the eye of a storm, embodying the biblical stillness of David before Goliath. No flinch, no retreat, just presence, an invitation to trust forged in shared suffering. Esther backed against the fence's cold links, her chest heaving in shallow bursts, terror clawing at her throat. These fangs, these forms, she'd glimpsed them from afar, symbols of the master's wrath. But Jacob's whispered wisdom echoed, stillness quells the predator's fire. No flight to ignite chase, no cries to summon fury. She held, statue-like, as a sleek black hound with a chest blaze approached, hot breath grazing her skin, ribs visible under taut hide. Pity surged unbidden, a mirror to her own starvation of spirit. "Peace be with you," she murmured, voice a gentle incantation. The dog's ears twitched, eyes lifting to hers in a gaze that transcended species, a soul recognizing another's chains. Tail flicking tentatively, it sank to the earth at her feet, head on paws, a guardian born of empathy. Thomas and Samuel stood fused, fists balled in readiness, hearts thundering like war drums. A reddish cur growled, flank scarred as if by divine lashes, and Samuel braced for the leap. But Thomas's whisper cut through, "Steady, brothers in fur, we mean no harm." The rumble ceased, the dog sniffed, circled, then yielded, reclining with kin. One by one, the pack followed, forming a vigilant ring not of threat, but protection. The kennel fell into profound silence, broken only by cicada's chorus and an owl's haunting call, as if nature itself paused in reverence. Jacob eased to the ground, back to fence, the brindled one observing without alarm. Esther mirrored, the black hound's warmth a balm against the chill. Thomas and Samuel lingered upright, scanning shadows, then joined, the earth cool beneath them. Outside, Thorn's visage contorted, confusion warping to rage. He'd envisioned carnage, blood's metallic tang, bones crunching under command. These dogs, his extensions of will, had betrayed him, choosing peace over programmed violence. He bellowed orders, "Attack! Tear them!" But the beasts lay serene, indifferent to his fury. Stick rattled fence, pistol cracked skyward, acrid smoke curling. Flinches rippled through the pack, yet they resettled, unyielding. His men shifted uneasily, Dalton muttering of poison, Harris whispering hexes, Hyers silent in dread. The order inverted, prey safeguarded by predators, a spiritual upheaval challenging the plantation's unholy hierarchy. Thorn paced, fists knotted, mind a tempest. Shooting them outright tempted, but witness' eyes and a creeping superstition stayed his hand. This anomaly gnawed at his core, power absolute? Or fragile illusion, vulnerable to divine whims? As hours bled into midnight, the dogs assumed sentinel roles, bodies interposed between captives and captors. The brindled one nuzzled Jacob, licking calloused hand, Jacob scratched, eliciting bliss, a bond forged in mutual redemption. Esther marveled, thoughts drifting to ancestral lore, harmonies of man and beast in Idnic times, before sin's curse rent the world. Here, in hell's facsimile, glimmers of that paradise pierced through, a chilling testament to compassion's resilience, where even abused creatures could embody God's mercy. Thorn relented at witching hour, gates secured, torches doused. "Silence on this," he snarled, retreating to his Spartan quarters. Whiskey burned his throat, glass after glass, as he stared kennelward, doubts festering like wounds. His identity, built on domination's altar, crumbled. Was this retribution? A higher justice mocking his cruelty? Dawn's fingers painted the sky in hesitant grays, cicadas yielding to birdsong. The plantation awoke, figures shuffling to toil. Thorn returned, haggard, eyes rimmed red. The scene persisted, for unharmed, dogs vigilant. Unlocking, he summoned them forth, they rose achingly, stepping free. The brindled whined mournfully, Jacob glanced back, a silent farewell. Gate latched, Thorn faced watchful eyes, a shiver traced his spine, fear's unfamiliar grip. Interim narration break, building suspense with rising music, echo effects on voice. And just as shadows deepen, the enigma unravels further, haunting the wicked, uplifting the weary. If this divine twist chills your bones, share with kindred spirits drawn to mysteries veiled in faith. Like to fuel these tales, subscribe for more echoes from history's crypts. Together, we unearth the next veil. In the days that followed, the Harrove plantation twisted under an ethereal pall. The dogs, once Thorn's obedient scourges, rebelled subtly, ignoring hunts, sitting statue still during drills. Their eyes held new depths, as if awakened to moral clarity, symbols of creation's groan against oppression. Thorn's paranoia bloomed like nightshade, interrogations yielded naught but blank stares, Jacob's gaze piercing through him, a judgment silent as God's. Whispers rippled through quarters, miracle or omen. Divine hand turning tools against tyrants, proof that beasts sensed injustice's stench. Peter, betrayer burdened, withered under guilt's yoke, sleepless, appetite fled, paths diverted from the fore. One twilight, he sought Esther amid her garden's healing blooms. "Forgive. Thorn's threats broke me," he stammered. She paused, earth on hands like sacramental ash. Choices define us, live with yours. He slunk away, soul's debt unpaid. Thorn's desperation escalated, starvation, lashings, imported trainer, all futile. The dogs endured. Unbroken, their calm a mirror to the enslaved's resilience. Psychologically, Thorn fractured, nights haunted by visions of protective circles, days shadowed by doubt. Spiritually, it evoked Job's trials, but inverted, the oppressor tested, his empire of fear crumbling under heaven's subtle siege. The four carried on, Orus transformed, Jacob mending with quiet grace, Esther healing with deeper wisdom, brothers laboring with unbowed heads. Their survival seeded hope, a psychological ripple eroding bondage's foundations. Rumors spread beyond pines, fragmented letters hinting at the night when mercy flowed through fangs, a legacy of redemption amid sin's decay. Cinematically, envision the kennels glow, moonlight silvering fur, eyes aglow with unspoken alliances. Sensory, straws prick, breath's warmth, fear's metallic taste yielding to peace's embrace. Emotionally, dread morphs to awe, curiosity to reflection on justice's arc, guilt's haunting, divine retribution's chill. This chapter probes deeper, boundaries of compassion, where suffering unites across divides. Biblical undertones abound, lion's den reprised, but with hounds as angels in disguise. The plantation's air thickened with portent, sins ripening for harvest, legacies etched in whispers that time couldn't erase. Call to action warm, inviting tone with motivational score. Stirred by this tale of unexpected grace? Subscribe, bell on and join the journey through history's spiritual shadows. Comment, has mercy ever surprised you in darkness? From where do you watch, southern soils or distant shores? The dogs lay like fallen sentinels in the shadowed kennels, their once ferocious spirits dimmed to embers. No longer did they strain against chains or bare fangs at shadows, they moved with a weary lethargy, as if the fire of conditioned rage had been quenched forever. The trainer, Horus, a weathered specter of a man with hands scarred from decades of breaking beasts, labored 3 futile days under the relentless sun. Whips cracked, commands bellowed, hunger weaponized once more. Yet the pack merely gazed with hollow eyes, unresponsive as stone idols. Their spirits gone, Horus muttered, wiping sweat from his brow, voice laced with unease. Whatever transpired that night, it shattered something deep. Ain't never witnessed the like. Best put 'em down, start fresh. Thorn lingered on the words, investment and pride warring within him. Admit defeat? To creatures he'd forged into weapons? No. A deeper dread gnawed, this wasn't mere malfunction. It felt like judgment, veiled and inexorable. He took to haunting the kennels himself, hours melting under the Georgia haze, staring through rusted links as if answers lurked in the dust. The dogs ignored him, curling in shade, breaths shallow, eyes reflecting a quiet accusation. One sweltering afternoon, Jacob passed en route to the carpentry shed, tools clinking softly. Thorn's voice lashed out, halt! Jacob turned, posture unbowed, gaze steady as ancient oaks. What sorcery did you weave on them? Thorn snarled, jabbing toward the pens. Speak plain, what happened that night? Jacob's eyes drifted to the hounds, then back, serene as still water. Nothin', he replied, voice low and even. Just gave 'em no cause for harm. Thorn's face twisted. Lies. They're bred for blood. Jacob paused, weighing words like sacred scales. Perhaps they're weary of blood. Perhaps they craved kindness. The air thickened, Thorn's fists trembled, urged to strike surging. Yet Jacob's quiet dignity, a self-mastery born of chains, stilled the blow. It unnerved Thorn, this uncrackable poise, mirroring the dog's own rebellion. Dismissed with a curt wave, Jacob departed, leaving Thorn to stew in frustration's bitter brew. The plantation's pulse quickened beneath the surface, an unspoken tremor rippling through the quarters. The enslaved felt it, a fracture in the iron facade of control. No bold declarations, just glances lingering longer, backs straightening imperceptibly. Hope, fragile as dawn mist, stirred where despair had reigned. They toiled as ever, hose biting red clay, sweat tracing paths down dust-caked skin, but a new current flowed, quiet resolve, kindled by the kennel's miracle. Whispers framed it divine, God moving through beasts to rebuke the wicked, echoing Daniel's lions or the ravens feeding Elijah. In stolen moments, eyes met with shared knowing, a spiritual ember glowing against the dark. Thorn unraveled in tandem, volatility erupting like summer storms. Minor delays earned savage lashes, rations slashed to bone-bare scraps, hours stretched into twilight's bleed. He prowled fields with whip uncoiled, seeking to reclaim dominance through terror amplified. Yet each crack deepened the chasm, resentment festering, fear sharpening into something colder. His efforts backfired, painting him desperate, authority fraying like worn rope. 2 weeks post-incident, Samuel Harrove's carriage rattled home from Savannah, dust swirling like omens. Absence had sharpened his senses, the air tasted wrong, charged, brittle. Summoning Thorn to the study, walls lined with ledgers of human commerce, air heavy with tobacco and superiority. Harrove's voice cut like frost, explain. Thorn minimized, a foiled escape, disciplined decisively. But rumors had winged ahead, Savannah drawing rooms buzzing with tales of defiant dogs, surviving slaves, a plantation teetering on mockery. Fellow planters smirked behind brandy glasses, questioning Harrove's grip. Fury coiled in Harrove's eyes, controlled but lethal. You've made me a laughingstock, he hissed. Gossip festers county-wide because of your folly. Thorn protested, discipline upheld, but Harrove silenced him. Failure. Dogs ruined, workers restless, my name tarnished. You're relieved. Depart by week's end. A reference I'll provide, but seek fortunes far from here. Thorn paled, world tilting. This post was his throne, brutality his crown. Dismissal wasn't loss, it was annihilation of self. Packing mechanically in his sparse quarters, bitterness fermented into venom. Final circuit of the grounds, fields where blood had soaked soil, quarters echoing muffled sorrows. At the kennels, dogs reclined indifferent, eyes half-lidded phantoms. Temptation flickered, end them, erased the shame, but will evaporated. He mounted, rode south toward coastal mists, unfinished torment gnawing eternal. Never returning, lips sealed on that night, yet memory haunted, power's illusion shattered, boundaries divine and unyielding. A man who'd wielded fear, felled by mercy's quiet blade. For Jacob, Esther, Thomas, and Samuel, grace proved fleeting, tragedy inexorable. Harrove, ego bruised, spared further spectacle, no public punishments to fan flames. Yet unity threatened, he severed bonds ruthlessly. Separation first, sales inevitable, scattering sparks to extinguish the fire. Within a month, Thomas and Samuel vanished into the maw. Trader William Gaines, assembling a coffle for western frontiers, Alabama's cotton empires, Mississippi's deltas, claimed them swiftly, records scant as whispers. No farewells, yanked from fields mid-stroke, bound, herded to roadside pen amid 30 souls chained for the march. Night prior departure, Esther evaded watchers, slipping through shadows with bundled cornbread, dried meat, hidden herbs. For ills on the road, she breathed, pressing into Thomas's palm. Eyes shimmered, his stoic, Samuel's fierce. Guard yourselves, Thomas murmured. Tell Jacob, gratitude eternal. Esther's throat closed, hand squeezed Samuel's through bars, then retreat into dark, no backward glance lest tears betray. Dawn chained them in line hundreds of miles, weeks of dust-choked trails, fevered swamps, guards' prods. Many fell, unmarked graves by roadsides. Brothers strode linked, resolve forged in kennel memory, beasts choosing mercy amid cruelty. That spark sustained through horrors, a psychological talisman against despair. Their trail dissolved in Alabama's vastness, no further traces, swallowed by the trade's abyss. Commodities erased, lives commodified into silence. Esther lingered on Harrove soil, reassigned to the big house, ostensibly elevation from fields. Better sustenance, shelter from elements. But veiled punishment, isolation from kin, under ceaseless scrutiny. Domestic toil endless, anticipating whims, absorbing barbs silent. Overseen by Margaret, free black housekeeper who'd ingested the system's poison, lashing subordinates to affirm fragile status. She targeted Esther's quiet authority, seeking to crush the healer storyteller's light. Yet Esther endured, spirit unbowed as ancient roots. Mask of deference cloaked inner fire, nights on narrow cot, memories flooded, dogs' warmth, shared vulnerability transcending chains. Wondered of brothers alive? United? That night's mercy a private liturgy, sustaining amid erosion. Health frayed gradually, cough persistent as winter rains, frame wasting under stress's siege, nutrition's dearth. Margaret drove harder, Harrove indifferent, replaceable. Winter 1851 claimed her, fever raging, chest aflame, alone in servant's gloom. January's cold dawn took her, body expended in exploitation's furnace. Burial in slave ground, unmarked mound, nameless cross, legacy erased from official earth. Yet in hearts, she endured, archive of songs, healer of wounds unseen. Jacob outlasted them, carpentry's value anchoring him. Harrove hesitated, selling skilled hands. But the night hollowed him, words rarer, motions mechanical, invisible burden bowing shoulders. Companions gone, freedom's dream ashes, lost carved voids deeper than lashes. He pondered the dogs ceaselessly, not trained response, but profound recognition, suffering mirroring suffering, mercy chosen over mandate. Philosophy crystallized in quietude, force has limits, compassion endures beyond brutality's reach. Resistance subtle, refusal to perpetuate cruelty, embodying grace where violence demanded. Shared sparingly in rest's shadows, not preached but offered, seeds for weary souls. Some scoffed, others kindled hope, viewing the kennel as parable, unexpected redemption in oppression's pit. War thundered 1864, Union's tide sweeping Georgia, Sherman's inferno scorching earth. Harrove's empire blazed, mansion gutted, fields reclaimed by wilderness. Master fled Savannah-ward, valuables clutched, never reclaiming ruins. Jacob, early 50s, frame weathered as old timber, greeted liberation with layered awe, relief's flood, disbelief's sting, grief for stolen decades. Soldier's proclamation, free, echoed surreal. He departed afoot, bundle meager, northward to mountain's promise. Journey arduous, strength ebbed, roads thronged with freed kin, chaos's refugees. Rested often, subsisted on strangers' charity. Encounters birthed storytelling, the kennel's tale, fleshed with truth's rumor veiled. Listeners rapt, versions heard now vivid, divine intervention through beasts, haunting the cruel, redeeming the meek. Settlement came in northern Georgia's folds, a freedman's haven, lives rebuilt from bondage's rubble. Jacob contributed carpentry, hands mending what war shattered. Nights by fires, he'd recount the miracle, voice steady, lesson in mercy's power, compassion's defiance. The tale persisted, fragmented journals, county whispers, descendants' lore. Spiritually chilling, retribution's arc bending slow but sure, thorn haunted, Harrove ruined, innocence scattered yet spiritually victorious. Biblical resonances profound, Proverbs righteous tending beasts while wicked's mercy cruel, Exodus motifs of deliverance deferred. Cinematically, visualize Thorn's departure, dusty road, receding figure dwarfed by pines, brothers coffle snaking west, silhouettes against sunset, Esther's solitary end, frost on windowpane, Jacob's mountain trek, dawn breaking symbolic. Sensory, leathers creak, chains rattle yielding to wind's freedom song, emotions layering dread, sorrow, transcendent hope. Psychologically, it probes guilt's erosion, hope's resilience amid systemic sin. Legacy? A haunting reminder, divine justice flows unpredictable, through hounds or history's tides, boundaries of cruelty eternally contested. This narrative's core, even in deepest iniquity, grace pierces, chilling the oppressor, illuminating the oppressed. What if mercy's refusal is rebellion's purest form? The mountains of northern Georgia cradled Jacob's final chapter like a long-awaited embrace from the divine. Freed in 1865, he trekked northward on legs scarred by decades of toil, bundle slung over shoulder, the red clay of Harrove fading behind like a nightmare yielding to dawn. The roads teemed with the newly emancipated families fragmented yet reuniting, souls searching for soil untainted by whips. Jacob moved deliberately, strength ebbing like twilight, resting beneath starlit canopies where fireflies danced as fleeting promises of light. Strangers' kindness sustained him, shared cornbread by campfires, shelter in barns, conversations where stories intertwined like vines, tales of endurance, of miracles whispered in bondage. He settled near a murmuring creek, its waters clear and ceaseless, a biblical Jordan washing away sins not his own. With hands that once forged under duress, he raised a modest cabin, logs hewn smooth, roof thatched tight against mountain rains. Simple, solitary, it mirrored his spirit, unadorned yet resilient. Neighbors sought his carpentry, homes rising sturdy, furniture carved with quiet precision. He worked in silence mostly, contentment blooming in solitude's soil, the creek song a constant companion. Yet echoes lingered, the brindled hound's gaze haunted dreams, a symbol of mercy's defiant spark. On a shelf by the hearth, he placed his carving, a rough-hewn figure of that scarred alpha, whittled under lantern glow. Wood chips fell like confessions, each stroke etching gratitude. Visitors, curious children, weary travelers eyed it, prompting questions. Jacob's smile emerged rare and warm, good dogs, better than most folk. Rarely more, unless pressed by kindred spirits. Then, fragments spilled, the humid night, fangs gleaming then retreating, warmth of fur against fear-chilled skin. The carving stood sentinel, a private altar to unexpected redemption, reminder that compassion, once witnessed, roots eternal in the soul. Jacob endured 7 more years, passing in 1872 at 60, body surrendering to labor's accumulated toll. Peaceful in his cabin, creek whispering farewell. Community buried him in a modest cemetery overlooking valleys, wooden cross etched simply name, dates, a life distilled. Remembered as thoughtful, scarred yet serene, a man who'd traversed hell's depths without forfeiting hope's flame. In him, they saw Proverbs incarnate, the righteous knowing their beasts' needs, cruelty's facade crumbling. The dogs met grimmer fate. Harrove, debts mounting before flight, decreed destruction. Useless now, spirits unbroken by training's lash, they couldn't hunt, track, terrorize. Shot methodically, bodies dumped in shallow tree-lean pit, earth heaped hasty, weeds reclaiming swiftly. Kennels raised, timber repurposed, sight erased as if sin could be buried. Yet their refusal burrowed deeper than graves, spiritual rebellion, beasts embodying divine discontent with oppression's yoke. But the tale transcended mortality, threading through generations like underground springs nourishing parched earth. Witnesses, enslaved onlookers, carried it in hearts, retelling in quarters hush, then freedom's gatherings. Traders ferried it along roads, morphing into northern Georgia folklore, hounds haunted woods, cursing the cruel, or moral parable of compassion's bounds. Post-war, in Reconstruction's fragile dawn, it reshaped meanings. Churches echoed it from pulpits, sermons on grace-piercing Pharaoh's darkness. Community fireside tales for grandchildren, resistance subtle, survival through shared humanity. Letters, memoirs preserved fragments, core unyielding, for cast to jaws, jaws parting in mercy. 1890s brought Margaret Calloway, historian with lantern of inquiry. Drawn to resistance narratives, rumors lured her to the county. Months amid elders, former enslaved, voices tremulous with time, she gathered oral tapestries, scoured ledgers yellowed, letters faded. Heartbreak and illumination intertwined. She unveiled Jacob's Virginia roots, kennel master under Dalton, bonding through patience, not pain. Skills transported south, latent until fate's crucible. That night, no panic, but mastery, stillness quelling instinct, voice soothing savage conditioning, trust extended like olive branch. Companions mirrored, faith in him stealing nerves. Dogs, starved of kindness, sensed absence of threat, sweat of toil, desperation sent, but no aggression. Relief bloomed, cycle interrupted. Deeper, years of abuse had primed rebellion. Beaten, deprived, they knew humans as tormentors. Encountering nonviolence, they chose reciprocity, compassion's quiet uprising, mirroring the enslaved's own refusal to internalize degradation. Calloway traced fates, Thomas and Samuel to Alabama's maw, records evaporating, lives commodified into void. Esther's ledger note, 1851 fever, exhaustion's euphemism, grave anonymous in slave ground. Jacob's path vaguest, until Atlanta letters yielded treasure, 1872 missive from mountain teacher. Elderly black man, solitary cabin by creek, animal whisperer, coming horses softly, training dogs gently, birds perching trusting. Wrist scars rope forged, shelf carving of dog. Queried, good dogs, better than most. Calloway's conviction, Jacob, proven by mosaic of details. Survival to freedom's taste, life reclaimed modest yet sovereign. Harrove crumbled, master dead 1863, heirs liquidating, Sherman's flames consuming mansion, land parcel to yeoman. By centuries turn, forests swallowed traces, quarters rotted, fields wild. Yet the narrative persisted, evolving. 1920s, journalist Harold Finch pursued legend, interviewing descendants. Clara, granddaughter of witness, evoked grandmother's vivid recall, torches flaring. Shouts piercing, dogs reclining serene. They knew enemies from kin. Site visit, ivy-cloaked ruins, tree-lean whispering. Article suppressed, controversial, unverifiable, notes archived, dormant. 1970s, graduate David Lawson unearthed Finch, fused with Callaway, interviewed lineages. Revelation, symbol potent in Black Northern Georgia resistance emblem, mercy's intrusion into cruelty's logic. Tactics disseminated, calm amid patrol's hounds, whispers spreading Jacob's lore, saving scattered lives. Lawson's 1978 thesis reignited scholarly fires. Debates flared, exaggeration versus essence. Skeptics, fatigue, poor training. Affirmers, authentic compassion amid systemic horror. Yet core transcended, refusal as rebellion beasts, like humans, withholding mandated violence. Today, the site slumbers forested, farmland quiet, no markers commemorating anguish or grace. Kennels myth, house memory. Yet the story breathes, classrooms dissecting resilience, documentaries illuminating shadows, grandparents to wide-eyed young. It probes eternal, oppression's instruments faltering, obedience conditional, conditioning fracturable. Horror in expected savagery denied, hope in chosen mercy. Biblical depths, lion's den echoed, but hounds as reluctant angels, good Samaritan across species. Cinematically, envision Jacob's cabin, smoke curling from chimney, creek glinting sunset, carving close-up, grain revealing eyes soulful, mountain burial, cross silhouetted against vast skies. Sensory, pine resin sharp, wood shavings crisp, solitude's profound peace. Emotions, melancholy for losses, awe at endurance, reflection on grace's disruptive power. Psychologically, trauma's legacy transmuted into wisdom, collective memory as healing balm. Spiritually chilling, divine retribution subtle thorn haunted, Harrove ruined, redemption through unlikely vessels. Legacy vast, seeds of undoing in every tyranny, moments machinery jams, connections defy domination. Testament to shared humanity, dogs seeing souls, not chattel. In cruelty's architecture, refusal is revolution. When beasts bow to mercy over mandate, heavens applaud quietly. This night affirms, grace unanticipated, compassion unbound, hope unquenchable even in jaws meant for destruction. The question lingers, resonant across eras, in systems built on broken spirits: what breaks first, the oppressed, or the illusion of absolute control?